I am yours and you are mine. And that contract or that commitment, Jesus has already given it to you. God has already given it to you. Why then do I have to keep doing it and doing it? Because then that's my issue. It's not God. God has never left me nor forsaken me. So why do I have to say, I wasn't confident enough the first time, so I have to do it again. That's my issue. What I need to do is just get down on my knees and say, Lord, forgive me because I wasn't as confident then. But now I understand that you did give me salvation through baptism. And now I want to live my life according to what I chose the day that I was baptized.
And again, you're stepping through an altruistic system. I agree. Now, it's not a matter of let's do it again, let's do it again, let's do it again. The question is, I'm not fully informed, I'm only informed. Because that's what it says. They heard the preaching, they said, yes, let's do this, let's do that. They come back and say, well, did you do everything, or were the words right? What if the person baptizing me was kind of confused in the language? What if there was any other series of 100 excuses I can give? What's the answer? Because you're saying comfortable confidence. But what if someone begins to question?
I think a couple things will help us answer this question. Okay. And one is, first of all, the only time that I have seen in the church history, like early church history especially, that Christians were rebaptized is if they were baptized by a schismatic church or a heretic church. And so that's how they would do it. That was the only reason they were rebaptized. Baptism was viewed as a one-time thing, and that was it, unless it was under very dubious circumstances, such as by a church that has separated from the one holy Catholic Apostolic Church. But the second thing is, if we ask how much should they know / believe before they're baptized? Because then that gets at the root of the problem. If somebody's unsure that their baptism was effective, that it was right, that they did it for the right reasons, if we can establish what we think is essential before being baptized, you can say, well, did you believe these essential things? And if they say yes, then you say, then what's the problem? And so maybe that will put their minds at ease. And again, maybe it all comes down to just a personal thing as well. Like, we don't want to be promoting like, hey, I don't know about your baptism, man. You should probably, do it again. But anyway, okay. So what do you guys think? We'll have to continue this next week. But what are some things?
Like a checklist, like to have like a checklist. Did you do this? Did you do that?
Yes.
Something like that.
Well, not did you, but do you believe such and such? For example, I'll give you an example where people would clearly think that. I don't think that's the right case. Do you believe Jesus is the Son of God? Yes. Do you believe he died for your sins? Yes. Are you going to, start changing your sinful ways and following him? No. What do you do with that? Like, I want to keep doing this. And you say, the Bible, God said you cannot do this. He said, yeah, I know, but I want to keep doing it.
But you've just defined it by a very critical word. You use it 10 times so far. Faith, faithfulness, and belief. Okay. And none of them are passive. We treat them as passive in English, but none of them are passive. So to say that there is Jesus Christ is Lord, Son of God, great. Okay. But the action that follows is the demonstration of faith. Mm-hmm. I believe he is, but I'm not going to change, and so I'll see you on hell. I mean, that's the kind of conclusion. So the question becomes, what is it you're asking me to do? Is a proselyte, which is what we're really talking about. How much do you know mm-hmm. when you're ready to do this? And again, from my own conclusion perspective in involvement, I believe two things: that in faith and faithfulness to the promise of God, I was baptized with very limited knowledge. No problem. Mm-hmm. Okay? And in faith, the Lord has recognized my baptism in the lack of knowledge. Mm-hmm. At the same time, there's nothing that I can find in baptism that I would restrict it to again in my life, again in my marriage, and again in any other thing. that restates what is the contract already understood with greater clarity. And that would be consistent again with Jewish practices in the sense of a new revelation, a new understanding. Now, I don't want to become legalistic with it because it really is a head trip when it gets legalistic in this. What if all of their head didn't go on the gate? What if all of their head did, but not all of their hair because they were kind of high at the top?
Yeah.
Right? And what if it was dirty water? And what if it was any other series of things? And to try and second guess not the person, but the performance or the actions themselves.
You brought up an analogy that I really like, which is, to marriage, is that somebody, they get married and then they say, well, I didn't know what I was getting myself into, so that marriage doesn't count. So that's something you could say about baptism as well, which I didn't fully understand what was going on, so that doesn't count. We don't say that about marriage.
But we do say, hey, I'd like you to officiate at the restating of my vows with my wife.
Yes, but which is not remarrying though.
Sorry?
It's not remarrying.
You're exactly right.
Yeah.
The first demonstration is the actual relationship with Christ.
Yeah.
The secondary are a reminder of what my first obligation was.
And so having that analogy could help us in answering some of these questions, such as, one, somebody who's saying, well, maybe I didn't believe enough, but maybe we could re-envision. We're continually re-envisioning and rethinking and gaining an understanding what happened at that time. And then also, secondly, is what about somebody, and we'll have to pick this up next week, but what about somebody who was baptized, they believed, and then were baptized, but firmly thought this baptism is just an outward sign. It's not for the remission of my sins. Does that count? And so could we say that baptism was efficacious because it was done in faith for faith purposes? It wasn't just a bath or a shower or swimming. It was a baptism. So after the fact, can they think back on that and it be efficacious? Like they were baptized, even though they didn't think of it in the exact right way that it was.
And the answer is two things again. Yes, great, okay. But the idea of confidence is important. Mm-hmm. It is absolutely important. Yeah. So we can infer that it was done rightly. Okay, but why wouldn't I just reaffirm it by saying, let's restate your vows. I believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God, who died for my sins, and that I have chosen to be a follower of Jesus. I mean, we've made that statement. Mm-hmm. Should I never make that statement again? I mean, and that's what I'm saying. I look for it as what is the analogy in Scripture? Paul speaks of it as a form of covenant, similar to circumcision. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, again, circumcision has a physical sign. You can check if it was done
obvious, right. Yeah.
Okay. Right. But when we look at the case of baptism, I don't think the repetition does anything to the soul, but it might do something to the person's confidence. Mm-hmm. Okay. If it was done right the first time, great. If it wasn't done right the first time, let's do it again so it is right this time. Because I don't want to ever be the determinant of a person's relationship with God because of the physical action of what took place in the baptism. I'd rather say, any doubt, any questions, do you?
So, shall we say for now, we'll continue next week. Yeah. I present you with Scripture, with how we interpret it and how we read it. Let's discuss and get at it, like you were saying earlier, Grease. And then, if they end up saying, oh, geez, yeah, like, based on what you're saying, I think I should do it again, great. If they say, well, I believe I had all of that, great. Maybe we can go with that for now. But
if there's a confidence, great. But I'm going to tell you, anybody that does baptism up there is always going to have a thing of they try to come up too soon, so they have to push it down. So I'm just telling you the literal action.
Yeah. So when you mentioned, did they do it right? And so next week I want to explore a little bit more. What do we mean by did they do it right, sort of thing. So we'll pick this up next week, and we'll close with prayer. Chris.
If you baptize